companies need to innovate? What are the biggest obstacle to innovation as you see it?
So I actually do think that that a culture of the company culture can be the biggest obstacle, really. Not necessarily the people they have in the organization, but rather the way those people are coming together. So whether it's a culture of fear or an extremely hierarchical organization, or teams that are made up of yes people, as they're called, like the typical, which kind of goes hand in hand with the idea of groupthink, that people they're afraid, whether it's of the leader or just the culture hasn't been created where they feel that they can disagree. And the word conflict is so scary to people. And even to me, I mean, we don't like conflict. Most of us are brought up that conflict isn't a positive. And so I do a lot of work with clients around, no, conflict is okay. Let's redefine it. That creating a culture where there isn't a fear of speaking up means that you'll get the best out of people. And so they'll bring the creativity, and therefore that leads to innovation in all sorts of areas.
Yeah. It's really interesting what you said about hierarchy, because I heard like a week ago that there was a research about hierarchy in companies. And this researcher went through IBM and all of the branches of IBM worldwide. So I think he went to 68 countries, something like that. Wow. Because they are all in the same company, he wanted to see the gaps. And he wanted to see the hierarchy, the way the processes go, the way they're working within the same company, more or less, in different locations. And he found out that Israel is the most flat one. There is no hierarchy, like less than other places.
Okay.
And I never thought it's that important for a company to be innovative because of that feature, that specific requirement. Why do you think it's so important to have more flat organizations and less hierarchy in order to innovate?
Well, I think innovation, first of all, is not only about a product. It's an innovative way of working, perhaps. Maybe it's an innovative culture that you're trying to create. And that's definitely where I'm more located in terms of the work I do and the work I do with Inusual. We really are not focused on necessarily creating a product, but rather the product is the organization. So when we talk about that, and if you have a very strong hierarchy, I've watched it in team sessions, in team coaching sessions. People are much more afraid to speak up. The way that they speak about, managing up, managing down, my subordinates, and already that language around hierarchy means that certain people have answers, certain people have all the wisdom, certain people, there's certain assumptions that go along with that hierarchical design and language. So, I mean, I think it makes a huge difference in how people show up to a team, for example.
Yeah. So what you're saying is they need to be more equal in a sense in order to have the discussion and to all of them have the ideas and to all of them express what they think is better or not. And really to share their vision, they need to be more closer than just I'm underneath you and I'm afraid that you might be upset at what I say, or maybe you will harm my promotion afterwards, or maybe it's not good to say what I think, something like that.
Exactly. And I think most of us could think of our own just personal situations where we enter into a dynamic where we feel equal. And so whether it's something like how we decide where we're going to dinner, but you feel equal, you'll give your opinion, you'll give ideas. But if you already go into it assuming that somebody else is for some reason the leader of the situation, you may be quieter. And I think now take that very simple dynamic to a team. And when you're in a position like a coach, for example, of a team, you can watch how people they measure their words. They're much more cautious. And oftentimes, if you do encourage them to speak up, they have fabulous ideas, observations, but they're less confident to bring them.
Yeah. That's interesting. Another thing that you mentioned is being argumentative or expressing your thoughts, even if they're not the usual normal thoughts that was said before you. And I think that's it's really strange because like in Israel we're always arguing, like the way we talk is arguing, like we always express our ideas. And for us it's just obvious. Like I think that there are not many people in tech, in the tech industry where I come from in Israel, that would think twice before they say it's not going to work. We don't think it's a good idea. Sometimes they over criticize, I would say,
Wow.
but they will surely say what they think, and everyone would say what they think. And
Well, and Addie, that's so interesting because that is definitely not the case in all cultures. And arguing, it's interesting because I said conflict and being able to disagree, and you say arguing. And as an American, maybe there's something about being a woman, the idea of having arguments at work that I go, oh, no. And most, people that I interact with here, that's not necessarily something they want to get into. Conflict is that bad word, right? But I think that people need to set down guidelines in their organizations and their teams of how are we going to disagree so that it feels comfortable, because culturally, you're saying in Israel, that may feel really comfortable to people. They don't feel uncomfortable in what you would call an argument. I think, for example, Americans aren't necessarily as comfortable with that. And in my experience with working with a team of British, they're very polite. They're very polite in how they come across. And so you always need to sort of create an agreement around how can we disagree and be comfortable with it. Right? Because it's not necessarily going to create the benefit that you think it might if you are, in your case, you say Israeli and you're used to saying what you think and even arguing about it. It may shut other people down culturally due to their cultural background. So I think as we work really globally, we all need to be aware of how we show up due to our culture and how somebody else may not be giving the same meaning behind what they're saying that you're attributing to it.
Yeah. It reminds me of someone who works in sales. And he said that when an American says, yeah, we love it, it means that they will never buy. Because he's just being polite.
Yeah, no, I think some of that is true, right? Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Okay,
that sounds, very exciting. Yeah.